Game at home all season, taking on Bournemouth, who, yes, we're on this lovely unbeaten run. It's now up to 11. But did you see that coming, Roy? Arsenal losing vital ground in the title race at home against Bournemouth.
Well, you thought Bournemouth would go and cause them problems, and obviously you Arsenal on the back of a tough European game away, and if Bournemouth were at it, you thought they would cause them problems, and that's what they certainly did. And it was a nervous performance by Arsenal, no doubt about it, and a big setback for them.
And there was criticism as well about the goalkeeper, particularly in possession, how much he saw of the ball, how much Arsenal used him at the back. And we've got some graphics, actually, Jamie, to show you on David Raya and his involvement in the game. So his season average of receiving passes, having the ball passed back to him, is 19. But you can see on Saturday it was twice as many as that season average. He made more passes, but this is interesting as well. He made a fewer percentage of long passes. Why was that significant, Jamie? What did you spot?
Well, we just go through these little stats here. So passes received, think of who you're playing against Bournemouth, really pressing, aggressive, forcing the opposition to go backwards. That's one of the reasons. The reason he had so much of the ball was it was part of a tactical plan of Mikel Arteta because how aggressive they are in terms of their pressing. So they wanted to use him as an outfield player. And in terms of passes long, obviously, he was trying to sort of bait the press, play into midfield and play out. And that was the big mistake for me when I've looked at the clips and gone through the game again. So we'll just have a little look and, see some of the clips and what the idea behind Mikel Arteta using the goalkeeper is so much. So when you come up against a team who are really aggressive pressing, not quite man-to-man Bournemouth, but almost that across the pitch. So what happens is David Raya is not a goalkeeper here. He's an outfield player. So if you use your goalkeeper as an outfield player in this scenario, it's 11 v 10. OK? So you actually see they're trying to make it a back three to play against almost two strikers to play out from there. Now, what happens is with Bournemouth is they don't go fully man-to-man. They keep an extra man at the back here. But what that means then, in this area, you've got an 8 v 6, OK, because you're using the goalkeeper. So you should be able to get out in those situations. The interesting thing with Bournemouth is what they do a lot is with the centre-back here, Senesi. Now, a lot of the time, he's halfway between jumping and staying there. So if he doesn't jump, you should be able to play out there. If he does jump, you've got to go direct. And that's where Arsenal got it wrong for me. So you see the situation now, David Raya, we see it a lot. He's trying to bait the press. He's trying to look, what are we going to do? So your three options are, can you play through them? Or can you play over them? They're your two options. Or can you play when they're not quite ready? So now we look, Senesi's jumped into midfield. Now look at this situation here. Maraweki, Gyökeres, and I think it's Martinelli on that far side. 3 v 3. Imagine Manchester City yesterday. Semenyo, Doku, Haaland, getting the ball into them. That's what Pep have done before. That's what Pep's done before. We've seen it before. Why are they not hitting this pass? That's how the best way you can beat the press. They've baited them to come onto them, get it into your front players. Now, is it because it wasn't part of the plan from Arteta? Or have they not got confidence in these players? Because I do think they lack real quality in the front three. I've said that before, and I won't change my mind. So they can't get out initially. Now, this time, Zubamendi. Again, we're in a situation where Senesi's gone back, so it's an 8 v 6 here. You can get out easy. A player of that quality has to just play that round the corner to Saliba, and you're back out. Absolutely fine. But Zubamendi is having a really tough time in midfield. And then the ball just ends up going long, high, hopeful, not quality into the front players. So that was the plan from Mikel Arteta. I've said before about playing through them or playing over them. Another way is actually play it when they're not ready, they're not set. We see the Bournemouth players here, not quite set. So let's get it in quickly, move it quickly, get Zubamendi on the ball. He's your orchestrated in that deep position. As I said, he's really struggling. Really poor pass, and from this throw-in, that's where the first goal comes from. So they recycle the ball, and it comes here. So we just stop it now, and what you've got is, you've got a 4-4-2 v 4-4-2 with the ball and without the ball. So two centre-backs v two strikers. We go straight across the pitch here in terms of the midfield four, Arsenal four here, and then you've got the four attackers be the four defenders. So when you're in a situation like that, it's almost everybody knows who their man is. So now we come to the goal and the mix-up with Maraweki and Ben White. So as soon as you're in this situation, you know he's your man. Truffert, the left-back. So we highlight the two of them. But what happens is they switch off because Ryan Christie opens his body here. Now, everybody thinks he's now either going to pass here and pass here. The right winger and the right back switch off because of the body position of Ryan Christie there. So he then does a lovely little turn in that position. Madueke lets him go. Ben White doesn't even know he's there. The reason you know Ben White doesn't know he's there is he's only just seen him and he's already looking back at Madueke to say, this is your fault. I didn't even see him. Doesn't even know he's there. That look, he hasn't even touched the ball yet or crossed it into the box. So for me, in that situation, yes, his man. But as a right back, and I've been in that position, you know your winger at times will switch off. So you have to do two jobs. Your job is here with the winger if he goes inside, but I've also got to be careful of that because he doesn't think the way I think. An attacker doesn't think the way a defender thinks. So it's not just on Madueke. Ben White should be aware of that run also. Another problem for them, Lewis Skelly at the back post. Krupi's the goal scorer. You can't get beat to that position where the goal goes in when you've got a 5-yard head start. So we're talking about Ben White not being good enough, and Lewis Skelly has got to be more aggressive at that back post. And maybe they may say I'm being a little bit harsh with the criticism. This is vital. This is the moment in time for them in terms of winning the Premier League. You can't afford these mistakes right now. And when I was thinking about Madueke and Truffert, and I thought to myself, let's look at the game early in the season. I actually thought Saka was going to be playing. I was saying, OK, let's see Saka do it well, because Saka's brilliant at actually getting back. I then realised Madueke was playing. He got caught out 2 or 3 times in this game by Truffert going forward. This is the worst one. So this is how we know. The plan with Arsenal is the winger's got to go with the fullback, and the fullback goes in there, because you see Timber going in. He gets caught out Madueke. So Truffert in this game goes forward exactly the same position. Comes in, it gets blocked rather than deflected to the back post. So what that tells me is there's no way in the world Mikel Arteta, with his attention to detail, would have not said to Madueke before the game, remember the reverse fixture, he done you 2 or 3 times down the line, be careful, be ready for that. So switching off at this vital time for Arsenal was not acceptable for Madueke in that situation. But that was the first goal. We're now going to go to the second goal. What we highlighted very early on in the game was the role of David Raya. Again, he's an outfield player. It's 11 v 10. He's on the same line as the centre-backs to make it a back 3. So exactly the same thing was happening right throughout the game. So he's now faking to play. Senesi stepped in, and you've now got your front 3 there. And again, they don't go into the front players. If that was Manchester City, imagine Ederson. He goes in there. He gets it into his big, powerful players. Again, is it because they don't trust the quality of these attacking players? Or it was some kind of blind spot from the manager tactically, how they set up? But again, we now go back to Zubimendi. Someone running off from him. Again, we've seen him poor in possession for the first goal, and someone running off him for the second goal. And that lad in midfield is having a really tough time. I just think the physical demands of playing the Premier League is really catching up with them, as we can see with these stats. Discounting
the FA Cup, Rice and Zubimendi have both started the last 14 games, and between them, Marino, Ødegaard and Norgard, through injury and selection, have only started 1. Is this a problem? Is it catching up with him in his first season in the Premier League?
Yeah, it can be a problem, of course. And this is where Rice, I think, has to show a bit more leadership skills. I know he's doing his best out on the pitch, but he's got to get hold of people. You look at the position they're in, that was a nervous performance. But if you're going to play a top-level sport, we saw it with Mac, it's OK being nervous. It's how you deal with it. It's your decision-making. We saw a lot of them clips. I could have stepped in on load of them clips, body language from certain players. And again, when I was a midfielder and you're on the back of a European game and a team is pressing you and they're really at it, when it goes back to your goalkeeper and you're showing for it, I don't want it. You got a big target, man. Don't complicate it, especially if you're nervous and the fans, and they'll feel the tension, but you got to deal with them. They'll miss me out. And I'd be sure, I don't want to hear, because there's something in the air. You smell it. You've had a tough European game. You've been travelling. Do you think Arsenal are then overcomplicating things right now? Well, they did against Bournemouth. No, because listen, the position they're in is still fantastic. But there's certain games, as I said, you're on the back of a tough game, and Bournemouth, who haven't played for a while, and they're at it. You have to smell these things. It's not as if Arsenal learned from the first half. They were doing as well for the second half. And people like Rice, we're talking about leadership skills, they've got to get a grip of people. Because a lot of the Arsenal, the feedback the last few days, people are looking at Arteta, the fans are nervous. No, this is on the players. If the fans aren't going to do it for you, the manager can only do so much. He's got a brilliant squad together. You're in a great position. Do not let this slip. And at this moment in time, they're letting the nerves get the better of them. But you got to deal with that. And that's just football and decision. And don't go on an ego trip. We got to play 50 passes. No, just go to the target, man. Because if we're nervous, I'd rather be nervous up there than nervous on us trying to be too clever and people like good players giving the ball away cheaply. Because what happens with Bournemouth then, that just gives them encouragement. So they're going to Arsenal going, lads, there's something here for us. And they got confidence out of Arsenal's nervousness. They've got to get a grip of that, or it will slip by.
And it also, of course, gave Manchester City great encouragement before their trip to Stamford Bridge yesterday. But even so, it was a tepid sort of first half, wasn't it, against Chelsea? And then you saw in the second half, the first 15 minutes of the second half, a real gear change. The same amount of shots as in the entire first 45 minutes. You saw their expected goals tally double in that 15-minute period, Jamie. So what happened?
Well, Arsenal and Manchester City are both trying to win the league differently. The best way to describe that first half from Manchester City, it was like watching Arsenal. Lots of slow passes, no penetration, can't really hurt them. They couldn't do it. But Manchester City are a different team to Arsenal, and they've got more penetration and quality in the final third. You see Nico O'Reilly there, straight from the kick-off of the second half, penetration, looking to go forward. Doku doing the same 2v1. Bernardo Silva gives a poor pass away. Watch his reaction now on a throw-in. Chelsea get the throw-in, Bernardo Silva, smallest man on the pitch. He's making sure I win this header. You can almost feel the energy from Manchester City straight away. Doesn't just head it, goes for the second ball, goes to put a challenge in again. Mark Gay, almost diving header to keep it alive. Doku, what's he do? 2v1, he's going for it, he's going forward. You can see the messages from Pep Guardiola, and they're almost in for a goal. So it's not just with the ball, it was out the ball. There was a complete contrast from what we'd seen in that first half. Look at Semenyo making penetrating runs. We didn't see that in the first half at all. Bernardo Silva running again, running the game as he always does. You can just feel the pace of the game change. And that corner led to the first goal. Cherky, again, look how sharp he is on the ball, how quick he is. We're talking about his quality as well, but there's also an intensity when he's there. Sometimes, there was one in the first half, a clip we were going to show, he was actually a little bit lethargic on the ball in these areas, but that pure quality in there, Nico O'Reilly, who's been fantastic. And I want to look at Doku again. Mainly the wingers here, I think, made a big difference. Now, Doku should just pass that ball back. That's the right thing to do. But it almost feels like a mindset shift. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to be aggressive. He ends up winning it back. And Pep Guardiola said that after the game. This wasn't about tactics. This was a mindset. Semenyo penetrating, running behind. These are things we didn't see from Arsenal yesterday. They weren't playing these balls into their front three, in behind, penetrating runs, aggressive, using the front three. And that led, I said, 2 minutes later to Manchester City getting the second goal, which I think really killed the game. But it almost felt right from half-time, they knew they were going to win the game in the next 15 minutes. But this guy here, Cherky, we're moaning about sort of players, have we got real quality in the Premier League? But he is an absolute magician. But the thing I love about this goal is just keep an eye on him. Your head down all the way. Keep an eye on. If we just stop it now. I think right now, he sees he can get the ball in here, but he has to wait for Pedro to move. He knows now he's going to make this pass, and he just has to wait another second till he's moved out the way. What a touch and what a finish.
Oh, delightfully two-footed, isn't he?
Brilliant. Brilliant to see from quality he's got. As I said, we've been watching brilliant Champions League teams in the last couple of weeks, Bayern Munich and PSG, and we're actually worrying if we've got that quality in this league right now. And that's where you see, he knows now, he's seen it now. He just waits, boom, there you go. And there's Pedro stepped out of position. And Mark Gay,
it's great for Pep, even at half-time, great manager, but giving the players a reminder what the game is about, lads. You got to run. But even the first half, they were slow with the play, but there was still time with Chelsea.
Yeah.
You just knew it was coming. But sometimes you need a reminder from your manager to go, lads, don't forget to run, stretch this team. And they got the rewards.
What a game we've got next Sunday. This was Gary Neville's take on it in his podcast yesterday.
I have thought for a number of years with this Arsenal team that they've got to go and win a game that sort of shakes the world. Do you know what I mean? They've got to go to City next week and win. And I've thought that for a number of years, that you just have to sometimes. And it doesn't matter how it happens. You could go to Manchester City next week. They could get battered in the first half, but be 0-0 at half-time, Arsenal. But then go and nick one with 15 minutes to go. And all of a sudden, the lights come on and you're 9 points clear. And that's what Arsenal have got to believe this week. Now, have they got that belief? Can they put it into perspective that this was always going to be difficult, that no one was going to give them it on a plate, that actually, a title race is a roller coaster?
What do you think, Roy? Do you go there and try and win it if you're Arsenal, or do you a draw they've managed in the last 2 seasons? That might be enough.
Obviously, they're going to try and win the game. You're trying to win every game of football you're involved in. But I don't agree with Nev that you have to go there and win and, what did he say, rock the world? I wouldn't go that far, but you have to go and perform and obviously try and get a positive result. You don't go gung-ho. Remember, Man City earlier in the season went down to Arsenal. They were quite happy to sit in. And this is a Man City team that have won lots of trophies. So whatever happens on the day, you've got to try and find a way to win. But I don't believe that they have to go there and put a marker down. They have to go and perform, and the draw's not the end of the world for them.
Isn't it set up so nicely, Jamie? Because Manchester City know they have to win.
They do. Arsenal don't. If Arsenal get a draw, I think we'd all say it was a great result. It's just how they go about doing it. But when I was just thinking, actually, their away games this season, they found it tough at Anfield. They lost there, they lost to Aston Villa. I think they drew at Chelsea. I might have that wrong.
Yeah, they did.
They went to Manchester United. So you think of all of the teams in sort of the top 5 or 6, they went to Manchester United, really poor performance. They actually won that game. So, yeah, the thing for Arsenal right now is how they are here. You know, and there's all going to be this talk all week of Manchester City, and it's how they can overcome that. But a manager is not going to change now, after being a manager for 5 or 6 years, in the next week, going there. So we know how Mikel Arteta's going to go about it. He's going to back his strengths, which his strengths are his back four and maybe Declan Rice in there causing problems and getting on the ball. His strength is not in the attacking sense. As I said, I've said all season, they haven't got an outstanding attacking player.
This is on the players now, I think, Jamie. I think the manager, obviously, he's got to do his bit. The position they got themselves in, the squad they are. We'll find out about what kind of characters these Arsenal lads are over the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, what they're made of. And that is challenge each other, not being best mates with everybody, falling out with each other. Because, again, if they slip up here, they'll never forgive themselves.
Can't wait for it. It is live with us next Sunday. Manchester City taking on Arsenal at